call came through to a woman named Sushi Staples, who was asked if she was indeed the person authorities wanted to speak with. Officials explained they had received a disturbing phone call prompting their inquiry. They asked if she knew a woman named Latricia. The caller had informed the Department of Children and Family Services that a child of Sushi Staples had accidentally shot himself, but Sushi Staples firmly rejected this claim. On the night of July 25, 2023, police officers were dispatched to a residence in Rock Island, Illinois. Their arrival followed a troubling report of a child allegedly having shot himself inside the home. Yet the identity of the child, the circumstances of the incident, or even the truth of the report remained unclear. The officers who arrived appeared stunned by the situation, and the mother, Sushi Staples, expressed disbelief over the allegations concerning her supposed 4 children. Records from 2021 showed that the Department of Children and Family Services had previously visited her Chicago residence where a child named Zion Staples was present. A second visit the following day would reveal a grim and unsettling truth. This revelation would shock and disgust those learning of it. Welcome back to my channel. I am Adrian, and today I will unravel the story of deception, exposing what it truly means to lie. This case demands your judgment as its conclusion took an unexpected and disturbing turn, so grab a coffee and let's delve into the investigation together. This is the story of Sushi Staples. July 25, 2023 began like any other day in Rock Island, but the following days would unfold into a nightmare for a mother, her children, and the responding officers. The chain of events started with an anonymous neighbor reaching out to the Department of Children and Family Services, voicing concern over a child in their community. This was not the first time this neighbor had contacted the agency. However, only after receiving alarming new information did the authorities begin to take the report seriously. The caller was a friend and neighbor of Sushi Staples, a mother to multiple children. Disturbingly, Sushi had confided in this friend that her son Zion would not be coming home for Christmas anymore. A chilling statement that raised serious alarm. Sushi and her children had lived in Rock Island for many years, never relocating. For most of her children, their home on 20th Avenue had been their only home. Rock Island itself is a modest city with about 37,000 residents. It carries its own history and character, but remains relatively unknown outside the region. Sushi Staples worked as a patient caretaker at Mercy One Genesis Hospital just miles from her home. Additionally, she was attending the local community college, striving to improve her prospects despite a late start in education. Her marriage to Lotus Owens had ended in a bitter divorce marked by deep-seated animosity. By the end, Sushi and Lotus despised one another, and his new relationship only fueled the hostility. His new partner reportedly harbored intense hatred toward Sushi. But Lotus was not the only father of Sushi's children. Sushi was mother to 8 children spanning 12 years between the oldest and youngest. The 2 eldest children were removed from her care, deemed unfit, and placed under the custody of the Illinois Department of Children and Family Services. Rumors circulated that not only motivated her estrangement from Lotus, but also explained why she possessed a firearm. From an outsider's perspective, the Staples family seemed ordinary and happy, though by 2023, only Sushi and her 4 younger daughters lived at the home. Neighbors recalled seeing the girls playing in the backyard, drawing with colorful chalk, and enjoying simple childhood moments. Life was modest as financial struggles were apparent. Following the divorce and all that came before and after, Sushi was now a single mother doing her best with 4 children. The reality was harsh. Single parenthood is a daunting challenge, and Sushi had multiple mouths to feed. She depended on government assistance for every child living under her roof, though exact numbers remain unclear. Still, signs showed Sushi was trying to better her circumstances. She maintained full-time employment while pursuing her education. Though a positive step, the family faced no luxuries, no new car or vacations awaited them. We all understand the value of a break, whether local or abroad. Yet international travel brings the challenge of changing mobile data once landing. Neighbors noted Sushi often spoke of going to church but was never seen attending. Likewise, none of her children attended school. Sushi preferred to homeschool them. While homeschooling itself is not unusual, it seemed Sushi lacked the education needed to provide a proper curriculum. The Staples children were effectively isolated from wider society. Without school, they stayed mostly within the home, making it difficult for outsiders to monitor their well-being. Concern among the neighbors began to mount over the whereabouts of the 5th child living on the property. For months, no one had seen Zion Staples. It was during this silence that unsettling remarks began to surface. It's not common for someone to casually mention that their son won't be around for Christmas without hinting at something deeply troubling. Such a statement carries a dark weight, one that neighbors could not ignore. When Sushi Staples made this ominous remark to a neighbor, Alarm bells rang, prompting them to alert the Department of Children and Families and eventually the police. Thus, the critical phase of this investigation began on July 25, 2023. That day, officers responded to a welfare check request at the home of Sushi Staples, moving cautiously toward the residence. The house stood quietly on the 1700 block of 20.5 Avenue. The body camera footage from this encounter contains long stretches of tense silence, so here only the essential moments will be revealed. Occasionally, the footage will pause to offer insights into the unfolding scene. The officers began by confirming the identity of their subject, Sushi Staples. They explained they had received an unusual phone call probing if she knew a woman named Latricia. Sushi Staples denied any acquaintance, dismissing claims that her son had accidentally shot himself as baseless. Her denial was firm. The officers showed no hesitation, pressing hard to uncover the truth about Zion. Their direct approach cut through any pretense, signaling the seriousness of their inquiry. Curiously, Sushi did not react with shock to the suggestion that her son might be dead. Instead of surprise, her response was measured, almost dismissive, as if she had heard the rumor before and found it trivial. She labeled the story as absurd, attributing the source of the claims to her ex-husband's new girlfriend. Sushi described this woman as relentless and unstable. She revealed having filed a police report and obtained a restraining order against this individual. When asked for the name, she identified her as Tony, a figure she portrayed as obsessive. According to Sushi, Tony stalked her through multiple Facebook accounts. She even admitted to receiving calls from various numbers under different aliases. Despite changing her own phone number, the harassment persisted. The elusive nature of the stalkers constantly moving around Chicago made legal action difficult. Sushi explained that attempts to serve court papers had repeatedly failed as the targets continuously changed locations. She insisted that the individuals were not even present in her area. The officers challenged her claim, noting they had never been called to her home before. Sushi clarified she had lived in Rock Island for 7 years without incident, working as a patient care technician and attending Eastern Illinois University. She held a job at Genesis Medical Center, reinforcing her image as a stable community member. She also mentioned owning a business in Davenport. Despite this, threats continued to arrive via Facebook, including images of guns and warnings to her address. When confronted with the allegations about her son, Sushi dismissed them with disbelief and defensiveness. Throughout the encounter, she remained combative, refusing even to allow officers to inspect her basement. She insisted they would need a search warrant, unwilling to surrender her rights amid what she called outrageous accusations. Her tone was resolute, emphasizing that she would not tolerate violations based on unfounded claims. The officers explained their duty to investigate, regardless of how improbable the story seemed. Sushi countered that any further steps must follow legal protocols, rejecting informal searches. She reiterated her plea to protect her household, especially her 4 daughters. The officers assured her they were not assigning blame, only seeking facts. They clarified that the investigation was preliminary, not an accusation. Despite their reassurances, Sushi remained guarded. When asked about her children, she confirmed she had 4 daughters, denying the existence of a son. Offered the chance to see her children, she declined firmly. The officers acknowledged the report mentioned a son, so their curiosity was understandable. Sushi dismissed the entire situation as an ongoing, exhausting feud. She expressed frustration, but understood the officers had to respond to the calls. Regardless of how unlikely the claims appeared, protocol demanded a welfare check. With polite finality, she apologized for any inconvenience. The officers explained their obligation to investigate every call. Sushi went on to describe the escalation of harassment now extending to emails, as her phone number was no longer known. She showed the officers spam emails as evidence. The latest message bore a name indicating the persistence of this unwanted contact. She lamented the difficulty in tracking down the harassers' true locations. Until authorities could serve legal papers and identify their addresses, the problem would remain unresolved. This ongoing harassment was a relentless burden in Sushi's life. She awaited action from Rock Island and Cook County courts to bring the perpetrators to justice. Repeated court dates dragged on, prolonging this painful chapter with no clear end in sight. The officers documented their presence, marking the call as a harassment case to avoid unnecessary returns. Apologies were exchanged as the situation seemed to drag on, frustrating all involved. Despite the tension, the officers insisted on making the call. Though it sounded unbelievable, they needed to see the scene for themselves. One officer expressed bewilderment over the woman's behavior. He described the situation as endless and exhausting. After reviewing doorbell camera footage, the officers confirmed their suspicions of harassment. Sushi Staples ended the tense conversation with a defiant statement. She proclaimed her presence firmly, insisting she had nothing to hide. Her repeated claim echoed through the room. She was transparent. However, if innocence was her shield, why block the officers from entering her home? Before diving deeper, a confession: it wasn't the legal evidence or body cam footage that first drew me in. What caught my attention was the absurdity of the name Sushi Staples. If she escaped life imprisonment for murder, surely her name alone was unforgettable. Momentarily distracted, I joked about renaming infamous criminals with equally bizarre monikers. Returning to the case, Sushi's agitation and defensiveness were unmistakable. Yet the source of her distress remained a mystery. Zion Staples was no phantom. Records confirmed his existence, and benefits were still being claimed in his name. If the story was fabricated, why was money still flowing into Sushi's account? This pointed to a disturbing possibility: fraudulent claims on government benefits. This evidence justified a second, more forceful visit by the officers. On July 26, 2023, just one day later, they returned armed with a search warrant. The new body cam footage revealed a stark change in atmosphere. The balance of power had shifted decisively. Sushi appeared guarded and visibly anxious. Faced with the warrant, she reluctantly allowed the search to proceed, with officers moving swiftly. While 2 officers detained Sushi, others scoured the basement for any trace of Zion. Upstairs, anxiety crept across her face. When questioned about their presence, Sushi feigned ignorance. She confessed to fear, worried for her children upstairs, uncertain of what was unfolding. Pleading, she asked to contact family to send help. The officers reassured her she was not under arrest. This seemed to calm her enough to keep talking, yet her fear was palpable. She was terrified and confused. The officers explained their visit was tied to a call they had received. They reminded her of their visit the previous night. They stressed the gravity of allegations, claiming she had a son named Zion, deceased and hidden in the house. That was the crux of their investigation. When directly asked if she had a son named Zion, hesitation filled the room. It seemed she had rehearsed this backup story carefully. The officers pressed again, confirming no son by that name. Next, they questioned whether she claimed benefits for Zion. She denied receiving any such benefits. She maintained her identity had been stolen by a young woman who falsified her tax filings and personal information. She claimed to be cooperating with the FBI. She said she was also working with the IRS. She described ongoing complications arising from these issues. Officers inquired about her interactions with the Department of Children and Family Services in Chicago. She admitted to false calls being made against her. As the interrogation lengthened, it became clear the authorities would not relent. They relentlessly pursued the truth, and Sushi's resistance began to falter. The moment came when officers informed her they were seizing her phone. She protested, demanding the right to contact her lawyer. She argued she should not be confined in her own home without access to counsel. Officers pressed her to confirm if she wanted a lawyer immediately. They warned that requesting a lawyer would end the conversation. She asked, uncertain if that meant she would be arrested. The officers could offer no clear answer. They reiterated their plan to search her house thoroughly. The search would leave no corner unexplored. In this tangled web, the truth remained elusive. The mystery of Zion and this whole situation hung in the air unresolved. The information they received originated from other sources, not from Sushi herself. Sushi dismissed the accusations as spiteful fabrications that people invent every day. It was only after relentless pressure from officers that Sushi finally showed cracks in her story. Yet she stubbornly refused to admit that Zion was real. The detectives urged her to come clean, warning that the investigation was far from over. They cautioned her that denial would only deepen her troubles. When confronted about any evidence bearing Zion's name in the house, she denied its existence. But she admitted needing outside help. Her vague statement left officers puzzled, demanding clarification. She confessed to employing someone to create documents on her behalf. And then, she admitted how difficult it had all become. When pressed directly, she finally revealed Zion was not a real person. No, she insisted she could not call a lawyer while under questioning. She refused to let an attorney come to her home during the interrogation. Officers gave her a choice: request a lawyer now and end the interview. They made it clear the investigation would continue regardless. Despite the tension, she pleaded not to be turned around. Fearful, she realized she was facing jail time. She questioned what crime she had committed. She accused the detectives of planning to charge her with fraud after her own admission. The officers reminded her their priority was to locate her child. She expressed disbelief, struggling to accept Zion might not exist. Questions arose about whether she was ready to be handcuffed. They informed her the cuffs would be placed in front. She pleaded for dignity, asking if she could simply get in the car. She begged them not to strip away her dignity by taking her into custody. Officers reassured her the cuffs would not be placed behind her. They promised a quick escort to the vehicle, aiming to minimize her discomfort. She spoke of her neighbors who had known her for 6 years. She pointed to her badge, highlighting her multiple jobs at Genesis. She insisted she was hardworking and committed. She mentioned attending school in the area. Detectives trusted their instincts throughout this ordeal. Their gut feelings would soon be confirmed. After Sushi's arrest, officers turned their attention to the home's external garage. The space appeared nearly empty except for a small pile of items tucked beneath some shelves. Amid the visible clutter, one trash can remained hidden in a dark corner. This suspicious concealment caught the officers' attention, prompting them to call in forensic experts to investigate its contents. Upon moving the trash can, they were met with a foul odor. They detected something heavy concealed inside. Closer examination revealed the very evidence they had been desperately seeking. Inside the bin lay the body of a young boy. This grim discovery would soon be confirmed as Zion Staples. The truth emerged. Sushi had been lying all along. Despite her persistent denials, Zion was indeed a real person. Though now deceased, he had lived and breathed, just like his siblings. It baffled many how someone could fabricate the very existence of their own child. Such deception struck as one of the most callous acts imaginable. Following this harrowing discovery, Sushi was immediately rearrested on numerous additional charges. Yet the case took an unexpected turn from initial assumptions. Authorities chose not to pursue murder charges, instead treating the death as accidental and hidden from the public. Two of Sushi's other children came forward with a tragic confession. They claimed Zion had accidentally shot himself after discovering their mother's firearm, turning the ordeal into a devastating mistake. Preliminary autopsy results ruled the death suspicious but not natural. Consequently, Sushi faced charges of failing to report a child's death, concealing the body, and obstructing justice, rather than murder. From the outset, it was clear Sushi might avoid a life sentence. Yet her explanations remained critical. It seemed almost absurd that a mother would hide her son's body, silently mourn, and outright deny his existence. Such actions suggested a deep underlying guilt, whether it was remorse for leaving Zion near the gun, or shame over collecting benefits on a deceased child. Her conscience weighed heavily. As the legal battle unfolded, prosecutors focused on neglect, endangerment, and fraud charges rather than murder. Before his death, Sushi was deemed responsible for placing her child in danger. What compounded the tragedy was her response after the incident. Instead of seeking help or alerting authorities, she enlisted her children to hide their brother's body. Two daughters assisted in placing Zion's body inside a plastic bin, which was then stashed in the basement beneath the family's dining area. She even directed her children to replace carpets soaked with their brother's blood and flesh. Detectives uncovered clear signs of deliberate attempts to mask the stench of decay. Investigators discovered that every vent in the house was stuffed with clothing and dryer sheets, a calculated effort to trap the stench and prevent neighbors from becoming suspicious. Despite her dire financial struggles, Sushi Staples continued to collect child benefits for Zion Staples, her deceased son. She had effectively erased his existence but kept claiming those government funds for months after his death. As the odor grew unbearable, she moved Zion's body from the basement to a detached garage at the back of the property, hiding the grim secret further away. She placed the body at the bottom of a large metal trash can, tucked it into a corner, and then attempted to conceal it with various household items, hoping to keep it out of sight. When detectives finally discovered the garage, they found several air fresheners scattered about. Inside the trash can, they uncovered Zion's body, clothed only in a small pair of Spider-Man pants. From December 2022 until July 2023, Zion's body remained hidden on the property, a haunting secret buried in plain sight. Meanwhile, Sushi continued to collect government money meant to support Zion's upbringing, casting a dark shadow over the entire tragedy. Trying to understand her mindset, I struggled to comprehend how she could react so coldly to such a horrific situation. I recognize that people often behave irrationally under extreme stress, but I would imagine most would be overwhelmed with grief, not hiding a child's body to cover up a tragedy. Perhaps the fear of losing custody of her other children pushed her to desperate acts, or maybe it was a dangerous mix of recklessness and greed. During a preliminary hearing, evidence suggested Zion most likely shot himself. The coroner confirmed this was a definite possibility. However, the coroner also admitted there was no way to conclusively prove this, leaving the possibility that Zion's death was a homicide open to debate. The Department of Children and Family Services revealed they had interacted with the Staples family multiple times over the past decade. Despite investigating several abuse claims, none were ever substantiated or deemed credible. Following the hearing, the judge found probable cause and ordered the case to proceed to trial. In response, Sushi Staples waived her arraignment hearings and requested a jury trial, setting the stage for a courtroom battle. But before the trial could begin, she took a different path. Sushi opted to accept a plea deal, pleading guilty to endangering the life or health of a child, effectively cutting the trial short. By accepting this plea, all other charges against her were dropped, limiting her responsibility to the single charge of child endangerment. In a rare moment of vulnerability, she expressed regret, admitting she should have done more but couldn't explain what went wrong. She insisted she was not a criminal or a monster. Instead, Sushi portrayed herself as a mother who, despite repeated failures, tried time and again to do the right thing. The court sentenced her to 2 years in prison for her role in both the death and financial exploitation of her son. Having already spent 204 days behind bars, her sentence was reduced to 1 year and 5 months. The judge also recommended placement in a mental health facility, acknowledging her struggles with an anxiety disorder. Additionally, she was ordered to serve 6 months of supervised release after completing her prison term. Surprisingly, Sushi was not satisfied with this sentence. She felt wronged by the judge's decision and sought to withdraw her plea deal to be resentenced. In a handwritten letter to the judge, she pleaded for reconsideration, citing her status as a first-time felon and her distant past with law enforcement. She requested deferred judgment, mental health court, and probation instead. Though the rest of the letter remains unread, it is chilling to remember. This note was penned by a mother who chose to homeschool her children. The stark truth is that despite endangering her child, causing his death, hiding his body, and continuing to claim benefits in his name, Sushi believed 2 years behind bars was far too harsh. Every so often a case emerges that defies understanding. It's astonishing to witness how far some can go in deception. Sushi's adamant denial of her son's existence, combined with aggressive behavior toward officers, hints at a deep psychological disturbance reminiscent of cluster B personality disorders. Many of us have encountered at least one narcissist in our lives, and this case fits that pattern unsettlingly well. During sentencing, Sushi claimed she was no monster, only a mother who stumbled repeatedly but tried to rise and make things right. From where I stand, nothing about this story reflects right or just behavior. I call this claim into serious question. Yet perhaps I am mistaken. What is your take on this troubling situation? That wraps up my account for today. Thank you sincerely for watching and listening. Your presence here means a lot. To the best of my knowledge, Sushi Staples will soon be released from prison, marking the conclusion of this grim chapter. Thank you all for your attention. Until next time, goodbye.